Good evening, everyone. My name is Sledge Chend. I'm a chartered accountant in public practice, and today I'll be talking for about 1 to 2 hours, depending on the feedback we get from you guys. The seminar is pretty informal, so feel free to type in your questions, and we'll answer them as we go. I'm just waiting for my slides to load. There you go. My slides are up and running now. Yeah, so the seminar is pretty informal. So if you throw in your questions, we'll try and answer them as we go. We'll probably stop the presentation and answer the questions. We like interaction, so it would be nice to have you, sending questions. You've got me here, you've got Then and Maggie, so you've got three people here, and we're about $1,000 an hour resource, so you're getting it for free. So please feel free to ask questions. Just a quick background on me. I'm a chartered accountant in public practice. I'm also an active property investor. I do properties buy and hold, long-term investments for cash flow purposes. Cash flow meaning cash flow positive. And I do land banking assets where I can build houses on land later in the year or later in years to come. Um, I also do trades where we buy properties, do them up, and on sell them for profit. I'm a partner here at GRA. I've currently have 18 years experience in property and in business accounting. Currently, in our whole portfolio, we have over 60 properties that we are holding on and renting it out. And we also have 17 new builds underway this year. And Then we'll be managing all the projects, all the new builds we build. He's on site. He's driving all the tradies and town planners and everyone else. So we are quite experienced in terms of property investing. And we are building standalone houses now. We're not really building townhouses and that. We're in the final stages of finishing a couple of our townhouses, but all our development going forward is standalone houses. Um, Here's just a little disclaimer before we move any further. I'm a chartered accountant in public practice, so I do not provide any financial advice. But I can give you opinions on what we're doing and what we're up to, but I can't help you decide on what interest rate to book and things like that. Just a little bit of background regarding GRA and who we are and what we do. We are an accounting firm in Newmarket. We specialized in property accounting and business accounting. Um, we provide tax advice as well, and this is bespoke tax advice, so designed to protect you and give you the best tax outcome. We also do asset protection. So asset protection is where we protect your business, we protect your family home, and we protect you as an individual, so you don't get in trouble. Insolvency negotiation as well. So basically, if you have not been able to pay your bills, we can give you help with negotiating and getting you out of insolvency circumstances. Like I said, we do tax advice and tax planning for you. We also do trust. Basically, we want you to form a trust and put your house in a family trust always. That's really important. And we offer professional trustee services as well. Now, professional trustee services is basically when you have young kids and your mum and dad investors and you're worried if something happens to you, who's going to manage your affairs. That's when a professional trustee comes in handy, or you're getting old and you need someone else to help make your decisions. That's when we come in as well. Or you just want a professional trustee to sit in your trust, we can do that. We also do property investment and education. So some of our schools that we run are property school. So tonight we're doing a property information evening where we discuss properties, what's happening in the market, things like that. But we do have a property school as well set up to help our clients understand property transactions, and we have a property development school as well. But I suggest property school is done before you move to the next course, which is property development school. Here's just a quick overview of what GRA has to offer. We offer you tax advice, business advisory work. We introduce you to our suppliers, and some of them are insurance brokers. You can get really good insurance rates and things like that. We'll also give you access to mortgage brokers. They'll set you up nicely, or they'll refinance you, get you the best interest rate in the market, and they'll basically go mortgage shopping for you, or get you pre-approval for your investment properties. We do property advisory education. We do asset planning. Just a bit of background on Then and Maggie. So the Then and Maggie are presenting with me tonight. Um, Both Then and Maggie do client support work in terms of property investing, the products they need to buy. Then Maggie, like, do you want to expand on what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, our job here, I mean, first and most of all, we thank you, Celeste. We are active investors, both of us. We're on the market, um, buying properties, looking at properties, but along with that, working here at GRA, we help clients with, due diligence and support when they are looking to buy a property for themselves, whether that is for something to buy, to renovate, to sell, or their investment property. And some of the tasks that we do is, market assessment and accessing the value, where they're looking at the due diligence, which Maggie gets involved in depth of, looking at the LIM, the property file, and noting out what could be a potential problem with that property. And just helping an example of what have we done on a day-to-day basis. And like yesterday evening, I had a call from a client that said, I've got a property that's going for mortgage sale, which we want to buy. And what do you think? We went through the numbers, and what they originally thought was not going to work. And so they went to the auction, but was actually didn't get to bid because someone actually paid higher, and we don't know how that number's going to work for them because based on the evidence that we saw, it didn't stack up. So those are the things. Maggie, is there anything that you want to add to this?
I think that's a really good summary of what we're doing to help clients. Another example is helping a lady who's currently considering whether she wants to do a joint venture project. And part of that assistance there is reviewing the real estate agent market and our assessments and perhaps finding that they may be a bit overstated.
Yeah.
Certainly helps people make their own decisions with unbiased and sound information.
The the advantage of using Megathon is they're independent. So, most clients get emotional and to tell you what they want out of this property and why they're buying it. Whereas Maggie and Then comes in, they come in as independent. They'll obviously look at the positives, but they'll look at the negatives as well. And they'll probably spend more time in the negatives, especially if there's something wrong with the property or there's title issues. They'll investigate into it further. Um, now, now we're going to start our presentation. Why property? Why are we sitting here today, guys? Why are you listening to me? And why we're discussing property. I personally think the reason we talk about properties and we like to invest in properties is because we want the best future for ourselves and our family. If we are solid in terms of our own future financially, then our family is sorted. You look at your government superannuation alone, that's not enough to live off. That's 450, $500 a week. It costs $250 to fill up a car nowadays, and your groceries. I couldn't believe I went to the supermarket on Sunday, and I don't really go to the supermarket. I walked out with one bag of food and $160. I absolutely couldn't believe this. I was looking at the price of cheese. It's gone up from $9 to $17. You know, I was thinking, geez, I can't afford this cheese. You know, but if I'm feeling like that, I'm going, what's happening to the rest of the country? You know, I I picked a couple of salmon fillets and I put it back. I just couldn't bring myself to paying $22 for a fillet. And it's just at your normal Woolworths. So I'm just saying prices of things are going up. I mean, I was probably extra. This is why I don't go shopping, right? Because I never buy anything if I go, because I'll just think everything's so expensive. Um, but this is why I think people need to invest in properties long term so you can pay for expensive food or when prices go through the roof. I don't think prices of anything's going to come down. Cost of building is going up every day. Amount of letter that we get regarding price of materials going up, cost of labor is up. Yes, the labors that are not performing, the law and labor market is cheap, but the guys who are thinking and who know what they're doing, their prices are not coming down. Um, Also, there's only few people in our lifetime will get inheritance or businesses to rely on. Yes, mum and dad investors or even business people. When you make good money, you want to park your money into a property asset that you can always sell cash up. And also, savings is not enough. It's impossible. And I'll talk about savings in a sec. Even a high income earner would struggle to save. And the next slide actually goes into that. Here's a high income earner, 45-year-old. His target is to, save $2 million a year. You have 20 years to save. And, that takes you to 65. And you need to save 100 grand a year, which means you need to earn $250,000 a year, right? Now, when you earn $250,000, you pay PAYE of 74,000, living expense of $76,000, and you save 100 grand. Now, I can tell you, when you earn 250, you spend probably 300 grand. You will live off your credit card. It's just human nature, right? The more you earn, the more you spend, and it just keeps happening. So, and what happens is, yes, you might be amazing at saving. If you save for the first 4 years, save 400 grand, and then you start feeling sorry for you. You'll be looking at your kids and going like, oh, they're growing older. I better take them on holiday. Oh, I need a new SUV. I need a new dog. All of that, right? And then smiling because he's thinking of getting a new dog. Um,
No, I've got two, man, no more.
yeah. So
You're going to eat some salmon for dinner.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just impossible to save, guys. So that's why we believe in properties because property gives you a different future and it's done for well for me, it's done well for Maggie, it's done well for Then. And I'm going to talk about my story in a sec. But properties where I've created my wealth, and it's all started in 2010, which I'm going to show you in a sec. So I started working in 2007 as a graduate accountant, pretty broke. I used to have 47 grand in debt, and I still remember this to this date. It was 30 grand in student loan. I borrowed 16 grand to buy a black Ford Falcon because I live out west, right? It's cool. Black, you got to have a black Ford Falcon, real bargain. And then I spent another 1 grand borrowing. I borrowed another $1,000 to put mag wheels on, you know. And so I was negative 47 grand to start off with. That's where my starting, you know, was. And I was a graduate, so no money. I was sorting out boxes of paper, receipts coming in, client coming in, dropping their shoebox, running away, saying, "Here, do my books." So used to do data entry. Now data entry is done through BankLink or Xero or MIB. So I used to physically enter data into a software and do GST returns. And as a result of that, I used to get to see people's numbers. And to date, I still remember looking at those numbers and how it worked in my head. And I could see all these people doing well in their life. And what they were doing is they were buying properties, and they did well. They used to buy properties, do them up, refinance them. And I used to watch all their numbers. So I learned of that as well. And I was going, wow, this is actually quite interesting. And then you do the GS210, you do the profit and loss, you see how much money they're making. They were making play more money than what I was earning in a year. They were making that in a week sometimes. Um, so now 20 years later, I make about $50,000 in property a month. In fact, I think $50,000 is the minimum I make. I make more than that, and Then and Maggie know what I buy and what I do, and the kind of assets I chase. And it's nice to, this is the first time I've ever felt like the banks are left, right chasing me for business, because they want to, they've seen what I've done, they like to stay with me. But as a result of making $50,000 a month in property, now I make 50. I've seen a lot of people making more than that, but it doesn't mean that you have to make $50,000. You make what you're comfortable with, but you have to buy the right property, and that's quite important. Sorry, and this is a little graph that Maggie does for us to show you 2007, 47K of debt. I started buying properties in 2010. I was about 26 years old, and you can see today I'm 27. So, in 2010, 26 year old, trying to get out of debt, bought my first property, and now fast forward life, that's 16 years later, currently in the portfolio over $50 million of property. It's well above $50 million of property in the property portfolio. Also, as a result of that property portfolio, we have a massive working capital. So now we've become our own bank. We don't need to go for pre-approval with the banks. We buy the property first. We settle the property with our cash. But that allows us to do with that portfolio, and our portfolio is growing. Now, a lot of people go to me, why don't you retire? Why do you keep working? I think retirement's boring. I think you've always got to have something to do, and so this is what our portfolio allows you to do. I personally believe, and Then and Maggie will agree, if you focus well into building yourself a property portfolio, it's between 7 to 10 years. You can have an amazing portfolio you can retire on. And not even that, you have intergenerational wealth. You can pass it down to your kids or your grandchildren or help your kids into housing as well. So property investing works if you do it right. It works. It always has worked for people, and it's a long-term game. You can't make money out of buying properties short-term. And I want to show you some of the properties I'm buying and what I'm doing with it. Here's a cash flow investing, cash flow positive property that I have in Brooklyn. I actually paid 515,000 for this property, spent 35,000 renovating. 550 was the total cost. The market value came at 850, instant equity at 900. So I released 300 grand out instantly. So, which means whatever money I put in, I got all that out and more. The property has been rented for about $1,300 a week. So it's been about $35,000 a year cash flow positive. Recently, I've sold this property and I've only sold it to a mate because he kept bugging me and I had a few drinks and I said yes. And I regret to date selling this property because the rent now on this property is $1,600 a week. You know, it's a property in Rotorua, and these properties exist everywhere. You got a front house, you got a back house, you got a big 1,000 square meter land. It ticks all the boxes of investing. And I'm a man of my word. So when I say I'm going to do something, I did it. I told him you could have it for 900 grand, and he's laughing. He's like, mate, have you got more properties like that to sell? And I was like, mate, don't talk to me. You know, he's he's laughing.
Clearly, he
Three
poured you
weeks.
some extra drinks to get that deal across the board.
So rule, don't get me drunk if you're trying to buy something off me, you know. But what it's done is he said to me in his third week, he goes, I can't believe the cash flow. This is like a job. It's the amount of money that's popping into his bank account. He just loves it. Here's another property, and so this was done, say, over the last 5 or 6 years. Here's the property that I did in 2010. And the reason I want to show you this is because I haven't changed my formula. What I've done then and what I do now hasn't changed. And this kind of properties exist in the market. Here's a property I bought for 320 in 2010. Front house, nothing at the back. I spent 290 building the back house, renovating the front house. Total cost 610. Market value came back at 1.6. And I instantly got to use 990 grand equity. I got to use that money and I used that money to grow my other portfolio. Um, I haven't updated my rental numbers. The property's rented at $1,600 a week now. I don't owe any mortgage on it. It's paid itself off like 10 times, and all that cash I get, about 60 grand a year cash flow positive, comes into my pocket. So this is an example of cash flow working. Started in 2010. Total cost was 610. And even if you start in this market, if you hunt for a deal, you'll find something. It's paid itself up so many times, ticks all the boxes, and now my neighbor is building 9 houses, and he's approached me saying if I would like to sell him that property, and I said no, because it's all
You haven't got you drunk
freehold.
enough.
Well, plus it's freehold. I don't need to sell anything. I said no, you can't have it. But what I'm looking at this property is saying it's done its thing that I wanted to. It's cash flow positive. But now, whoever takes it off me, or even me, I can build 7 houses on this property, you know, because there's no debt on it. I can build 7 houses, and even if it costs me 2.5 million to build 7 houses, I've got a good passive income coming through. But I've stopped building townhouses because I think there's a flood of townhouses in Auckland. And then Maggie knows that our plan is now to build standalone houses. But the reason I wanted to show you this is I haven't changed my formula. I stick to what I'm doing. Now, what we're going to show you is property examples of recent pitches as hold and what we are building. So here's an example of property we bought in 2023. We right at the end of 2023, we paid 1.3 million. The renovation cost was about 20 grand. So the total cost came to 1.32, two dwellings. So we got 2 dwellings. It's a subdividable property. So you can see our neighbor here. They have subdivided their properties into 6 lots. We can do the same, but we're not going to do that because we've got 2 dwellings. We're doing a social housing lease on this property, so it's rented to specific disability tenants. It's rented at 2,500 per week for the next 10 years. So this property here is rented out. It brings us good cash flow. After paying everything, I think we're still banking $1,000 a week cash flow positive, and we're just paying off debt. So again, I want to show you that this kind of properties exist. You can see my neighbor, he's got 2 properties. One day he'll sell, it'll come up in the market, and you'll be able to score yourself a deal. So multi-income properties are king properties. They actually give you good cash flow positive. Really important to chase multi-income properties. The cost of building dwellings is gone through the roof, right? If someone ever tells you they can build a house for 300 grand, I'm talking about excluding land, you start questioning their costing because By the time you put the driveway, the services, the building, it's way more than 300 grand. Then what do you think? 100 meters squared, say a three-bedroom house, what would you say that would cost?
I mean, we're kind of close to what, 600?
Yeah, it'll be close to 600 by the time you do your driveway, your services, and everything else. And that's anywhere in the country. That's the minimum you're looking at. The cost of material, your driveway, your services is only going through the roof, and it's happening everywhere. Here's another property we bought in Rotorua recently. We bought it for $310,000. We spent 150 on renovating because it's got two units, a three-bedroom and one bedroom unit. Total cost 460,000. After renovation value was 700K. Equity gain was 240,000 in 3 months. We refinanced at 490, so we got all our money back plus 30 grand, right? So we got the house for free. Our rent is $45,000 per year. Our interest in OPEX is about 33 grand. So we still get $200 a week cash flow positive. Now, what I'm trying to tell you here is this is a big land. It's got two units, so multi-income property, and we got it for free, and we got some money back, right? And this is the golden rule of buying rental properties: cash flow positive, land banking, right, and able to refinance your equity back out. Then, do you want to talk about this property here? What
Yeah.
we've done on this side here?
Sure. And some of the jargons that Celeste used earlier, the one OPEX is just operating expenses, referring to, your rates, water bill, the fixed rate. So insurance, those outgoings when you own a property. With respect to this recent development, so this was three houses, was in Hillsborough in Auckland. The project, which I manage start to finish, so it was a land subdivision with built to hold. And so the cost of the acquisition of the land and the paperwork, the consent and everything was about 1.8 mil. The construction cost was 2 mil. So all up it was 3.8 million. The market value or the registered valuation for this properties all up. We at the time that we did the actual feasibility study, we said it would be around about the 4.8 to 5 billion. So on paper, before we even started the project, we knew exactly what our end value or end game is going to be, and that was a pre-tax profit of 1 to 1.2 million. And I think it came out close to just under 5 mil of the valuation once we'd done the completion. So the key thing with any projects, any properties that we're looking at, knowing your end game and knowing those numbers, makes things easier. There's no guessing.
And also, this properties here, the three properties are rented for $4,500 a week. So it's actually been rented out. And, so we decided not to sell them because the rental market was so good. They're rented for 10 years at $4,500. This are good houses. They're used for mums, the mums who are disadvantaged with kids, and they bring them in there to make sure the kids can settle in and everything else. So it's a beautiful house and it's used for a beautiful cause. Um, Here
Ones
we are
being
building. Yeah, sorry.
those ones being freestanding, Celeste, is that the type of thing that you're going to build more of now going forward rather than the
Uh,
terrace style?
Rather than this
Yeah.
kind of, yes, that's totally
Mm.
correct. We've changed our plan now. This is again the one we're looking at is a long-term hold. We're not selling the site. It's our long-term hold. It's already had a contract on it, rental contract. It's going to be rented for 10 years. So it's we're building 8 units here. Now this is the kind of houses we're not going to build. There's still demand for this kind of houses, but we want to build more standalone houses. So if you look at this particular side, we're doing 8 units here. It's got a problem, and Then's working very hard to fix the problem. We bought this site for 1.35 million. Our build and development cost is 2.2 million, and our total cost is 3.4 million, and our market value is 5.7. So we're looking at a gain of 2.3. Now, what's happened here is we've finished building the rear side, and we've finished building the two in front. We haven't started the two right in front. The reason being, Then, do you want to tell us what's happened? Now, there are negatives with buying development sites, and we've just been caught with one.
Yeah.
And then, do you want to
So
explain?
yeah, so this one, we bought this development site. from another person, so it was a whole package. So it was a great deal. And when we bought it for 1.35 because they had all the considered and everything pretty much shovel ready to go. There were a few issues. One where there was the neighbors, all three corners. They did not like a big tower going over them, blocking the view. But that's the case in Auckland and most of the area where townhouses are there. Unfortunately, we bought it and we got the brunt of it, and I'm being the project manager, got most of the let's say daily arguments and but accommodate it. But that's something that it can that we can't change. But you just deal with the problem that comes through. But more importantly, we had one of the units which was had a power line close to it with when they actually design it, and we couldn't
Like
get
right
yeah,
here, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, the mouse just right there in the front. So we couldn't get a close approach consent from Victor to go ahead and build it because of safety. So we had to jump so many loops in getting engineering report, getting special scaffold, working with WorkSafe. Then we had to redesign. So we then redesigned the unit so that we made it slightly narrower. Um, and then still we're having issues. And so a bit of a back and forth.
Mm.
Um, that is
It's probably
something.
cost us 300 grand so far.
Yeah, yes,
And
yes,
it's and time as well and income. So it's you can see how a project can go wrong. It can
hmm
cost people money. So it costs us extra 300. We'll still make $2 million out of the site.
yeah,
But it's painful to lose money that we didn't need to. And as a result, we haven't been focused on other sites because we're trying to fix this problem.
yeah.
So we've
And I
lost.
guess the key learning here is that there are look out for problems at early in the stages, and if you find a problem, try to fix it quickly, and then now we look at power line more carefully than
Yeah.
before.
Every time we see a power line, we're like, oh, we got to call Vector and check this. There's another one we're looking at Parker Avenue in New Lynn. We're just 99% finished. It's just come on the market. This is a trade. We're building to sell. We paid 1.85 million for the land, 2 million for development costs, is 3.9 million total cost. Looking at market value of 5 million, so profit about 1.1. But we're going to sell this. The reason is we built to sell this. We didn't build to hold this, so they're going to be sold. We've got quite a bit of interest on it, but we're just trying to finish the project. So we just wanted to show you what we are up to and what we're getting up to at the moment in Auckland and the kind of projects we are chasing. Now, this is just another project we did last year. We finished this within 6 months from start till end in Papatoe, fully rented out for 10 years. It's got an equity of $1.1 million. We made that. And it's got a cash flow. I think it's cash flowing somewhere like 950 times six units, wasn't it then?
Yes.
Yeah, 6 units. So about $6,000 a week has been rented out, the whole lot. So it's gone, it's rented, so we get good cash flow out of it. It's in a very good spot next to Middlemore Hospital and all of that, right in Papatoa Township. So you got to chase properties that are in good location because you can end up making good money. Now, I do want to talk about this property. The reason is this is a site we bought 10 years ago and we paid 1.4 million. There was no intention to do anything with this site. It was right in the middle of Glen Eden, and we've had a change of views on the land because it's right next to a railway station. We've had a change of views as a result. We can build 90 apartments. It's all been approved. We've got resource consent, 10 commercial units, and 60 car parks. So with the land and the resource consent has cost us circa 2.4 million, right? Now the valuations come back around 8 million. So we got $5.6 million equity. Now, very important, what I've learned from doing this transaction is you buy the property in the right place. If you buy properties in the right place, good areas, you make really good capital gains. And that's what I've learned out of this property. So it's a big tick. So that's something that I'm going to talk about shortly in more detail. But buying properties in the right location, good areas, next to schools, all of that, you end up making, good wealth and equity. Now, guys, the main reason we're here today is talk about the 10 things we think make you a successful property investor. Now, this is between Then, Maggie, and I. We've come up with 10 things that makes you a good property investor and what you need to look out for. Now, number one, cash flow. Guys, really important. Positive cash flow is key to success. That's if you've got an amazing business, you have good cash flow. You've got a good job, you have good cash flow, right? So cash flow is important. It basically helps cover rising interest rates and increasing cost. So if you have properties, things go up, you've got good cash flow, you pay things off. Um, Also, the advantage of having positive rental properties, like the ones I showed you earlier, multi-income dwellings, the major advantage of having those positive rental properties is you can buy 20 or 30 of them and no worry because they're cash flow positive. If you look at Brooklyn Road, the one I sold to my mate, I'd actually buy 50 of those tomorrow, and that's the advantage of those kind of properties, positive, cash flow positive, and they support themselves. So every week money comes in, pays all the expenses, you still have money left. Now you could probably end up buying a negative property, but you could add more dwellings at the back, and create yourself a positive cash flow. Um, and only there's only a certain amount of people that can actually own cash flow negative properties because of their cash flow, right? They can own it, but not a lot of people, not mom and dad investors. They can't afford to have negative properties because, if your properties are $300 a week and your household income is, say, $2,000 a week, that's a lot of money that's been drained out to pay a negative cash flow property. Um, so also, one of the other things that we encourage is people to save money. If you do end up buying something negative, you can pay off the debt down, put more cash against it to make it cash flow positive, or you just use your savings to reduce the debt level down if you don't want to sell your property. But cash flow is number one, right? We always buy cash flow positive rental properties. That's our rule, and that's what we stick to all the time. You look at all the presentations we've done over the last 10 years, we've always stuck to cash flow positive. Regular income, guys, really important. Something we talk about all the time. Please do not give up your job and become a full-time property trader, right? It can be really hard on you because what you forget is it takes time to find a property, do up and on sell it. And maybe in a year you can sell two properties and make 200 grand, right? That's fantastic. But to end at 200 grand, you might get the 200 grand on the 11th month. So for 11 months, prior to the 11 months, you're starving yourself for cash. You're basically living a poverty life because you can't afford things. All your money is going into the property. So do not give up your job to become a full-time property trader. We've been saying that for years and years and years, and we'll repeat the same because you have regular expenses. Now you could have a spouse that earns good money, fantastic. Then you can go out property trading, and all of that. Now, when you have good income, you also get easy funding, which means you can buy rental properties, buy them under value, refinance, use the equity, get all your capital out, buy the next one. Good income allows you to grow as well. And then also because you have regular income, you can borrow money from the banks. You become bankable. It's called serviceability test. They do your serviceability test. You go, yep, great. You've been working for so long. You have good money, so you can actually grow. So regular income is quite important. Now that's our number two. Remember, cash flow was number one. Our number two is regular income. Now, Maggie, do you want to talk about access to borrowed money? Because Maggie is quite good at this. She created a portfolio from borrowing money. And Maggie, what have you got? Eight houses that are freehold now?
Maybe a few extra. There's probably that many houses. They're just not as many properties because, like a lot of yours, we've got multiple dwellings on the same title. But yeah, something like that. Quite a few houses there that are now paid off. But we achieved that by borrowing money, sensibly. And I say not to such an extent that it became risky or we're in danger of losing everything. And holding a greater number of properties, and then over a 10-year period, they grew in value, and we sold down a little bit and paid off debt.
Right. And if you talk to Maggie got into property investing in 2015, and she literally paid by 2022, she paid about six or seven of those houses off. And it was again chasing cash flow positive, selling the houses that were negative, getting out of them, and things like that. So, but Maggie, when she got into properties in 2015, her and her partner borrowed 300 grand from our existing property to grow their portfolio, right, Maggie?
Yes,
So,
that's right. Yeah, Jeremy had a ordinary little house that he had always paid off, just scrimping and saving.
Yeah.
From his job, and living with flatmates, and then that was paid off, and we're able to get, as you say, a $300,000 revolving credit facility against that, using two incomes. So both stayed working full time throughout the whole time, even when we were renovating and fixing things.
Mm.
Um, and that was really the starting point. And then as the values grew, so growing your equity, every deal we were creating equity, plus the capital growth that was occurring, and as you're saying, keeping two full-time incomes coming in,
Mm.
plus rents, meant that we could grow quite a bit.
Yeah. And so this is quite important, and here's some of the notes. Actually, Maggie wrote this slide up, because she went through this herself and she understood this well. When you manage borrowing and make beneficial changes along the way. So that's what Maggie's saying. When you can borrow money, you can do things like that. Understand your borrowing capacity, and constraints, like example, income level and equity. That's what borrowing allows you to do. It makes you think, oh, are you a big spender? You're not earning much, but you're spending big. So it allows you to think and go, I better control my spending. You also need a good mortgage broker, really important. And being part of GRA, we give you access to a good broker. And eventually, what happens is, as you get bigger or you build your relationship with multiple banks, your banking facilities grow as well because now you've got a relationship. Um, Very important, credit card facilities and spare capacity or pre-approvals are really important when it comes to buying properties. Those things are the basic one-on-one tools we need. And one thing is understanding interest only and principal and interest lending, and how to make it to your advantage. Now, I always say to people, if you can afford to pay principal off, you do, right? And the day you can't, you stop paying off principal, right? But when interest rates are low, you pay off your principal and you focus on that. Um, also when what it does is because you're paying principal off, it allows you to borrow against your equity and buy more houses or refinance and get some money back out. Um, Also, when your money is in place, you buy deals. You can see a deal on site, you can buy it. Then works closely with us, and we find a property, we send Then down to auction. He knows we're all cashed up, we don't need any bank permission, and we start buying properties. That's the beauty of having borrowed facilities in place, or some sort of working capital in place. Now, working capital, guys, this is a very important slide, right? The last 4 years of my life, I've spent building up my working capital facility. I've put a lot of effort into this. Basically, it's having spare cash or spare money available, cash or against banking facility to grow. And that's what it does. It's so essential to operate your property investing business or any business to have spare working capital. And this is your credit cards, your overdraft facilities, all of that. If something goes wrong, you don't need to go and cry to your family and friends for money. You have your own facilities to bail you out. Basically, you become your own bank, right? And when you have enough in the kitty, you don't get, oh, well, sorry, when you need money for repairs and the properties are empty, you don't care because you have money available. You can fix your property and you do it properly. You don't cut corners. Um, the bigger the portfolio, the more money you need on your hand. That is very important because as your portfolio grows, the bank will give you bigger facilities in place, and you could have 10 properties sitting there empty at any one time, so you can fix it. But as you grow bigger facilities and you have better control of things. By having working capital, you actually just have control of your own life. You don't let the banks control you, all right? Because you've got your own money. If the banks are getting too smart, you can take some money out of bank A, go to bank B and say, here's the money, go away. Uh, you know, and you can have peaceful sleep at night because you have facilities you can get into, like such as overdraft facility, offset facility. You could have access to $1 million. And like Maggie said, the money can be used for deposits. It's just sitting there, you can, you got $1 million overdraft facility, you need 400 grand deposit, you can use it from the overdraft, you know. So those things are important. Working capital is, for me, is my key to what I'm trying to achieve in life with properties. The right property. This is another important one. You cannot buy properties that are not fit for purpose. Very important. Smart investors will only buy properties that works for them in terms of numbers. There's no emotions, right? So smart investors, they don't have any emotions, they don't care. So really important, guys, when you're buying properties, keep your emotions away. Um, Most investors only have a few properties, but that's enough to grow your wealth over time if you have the good ones. Refinance, use the equity to grow to the next one and use different banks, right? You optimize your results and by choosing properties carefully, right? Capital growth area is really important, right? Where are the schools? You know, I grew up in an area called Kelston, and we used to buy houses there for $110,000, say 800 square meters. Now they sell for $2 million because we can build 10 units on this particular site, and there's seven schools in the area, right? So when you have seven schools in the area, what does that mean? Over 1,000 people are employed in that particular area, right? And they all need houses. Mum and dad, over 5,000 kids are living in that area. Mum and dad are at work. They want the kids to walk home, right? So that particular area has now become its own town. You could buy 800 meters squared 15 years ago or 20 years ago for 150,000. Now you're paying $2 million for the same property, you
Do you
know?
keep any of your Kelston properties, Celeste?
The biggest mistake was I didn't buy enough.
Mm.
That's
That was actually a
everyone.
booming area. I should
That's
have gone in there
Mm.
hard.
that's everyone's
Um,
problem, right? If you look back and going, oh, we should have bought more, held on to more.
yeah, I was getting like, three sites thrown at me for $450,000. And I should have bought them all, and it's just the area I didn't know it was going to go up. 450 for three houses, right? Now they're 4.5 million, those sites. And also the right property is opportunity to create equity, right? What that means, you buy it at discount price, instant equity. You can refinance, get your money out, and cash flow positive. That's really important with people. If your cash flow is tight, you want to buy cash flow positive properties. Um, Also avoiding the wrong properties, super important. You avoid them, because once you buy the wrong property, your growth will be slow, right? And for years and years, you could be just topping up this property that's going backwards and backwards and backwards. And sometimes you might as well hand the keys and move to Aussie if it's too hard, you know. So buy the right
You're in that.
property.
Yes, sorry, Salisha, just wanted to add there that if you're in that situation, it actually often prevents people from doing anything else. So
Yeah.
you really are stuck there sometimes for years.
And the reason people buy the wrong property is they get emotionally involved. That's the worst thing to do because smart investors sitting there going, great. Now they're emotionally involved. Let's go for the highest price. So do not emotionally get involved. Like Then and I, we were at an auction last week, a property that I was thinking will go for 1.4, spend 300 grand doing it 1.7. It's sold at auction at 2.1. And I'm going, where's the money in this property? But the guys who were buying it were emotionally involved. They didn't care. So they didn't care they paid 2.1 plus 300 for renovation. They don't care they're going backwards 400 grand. They just didn't care. Um, so the standard errors, include thinking you have a future development site. In fact, it's not because there's no serviceability or there's no services available on site. Overpaying in relation to market value, emotionally attached, right? You think it's amazing house, you could live in there. Don't do that. Buy next negative cash flow properties, right? Do not do that unless you can afford it and you don't care. It's got 3,000 square meters of land, one little tiny house that rents for $200 a week, right? Because you lend banking, you don't care about the house because you're going to demolish it. But do not just buy a cash flow negative property for the sake of it. If you're going back $500 a week negative, man, just imagine how many years you have to hold on to this property to recover your money. So be very careful buying negative cash flow properties. And I don't care if people say the property is going to double in 10 years' time. The chances are you might not be able to survive that long holding on to that property, so you'll be forced to sell. High maintenance cost properties. Be careful with that. You could have a beautiful bungalow or heritage home. Be careful. They cost a fortune. Yeah, you might get $1,000 a week in rent, but your maintenance cost could average out $1,000 a week. Forget about, what your operating expenses are going to be and all of that. Number seven, a great team. Important, guys. Number one, make sure accountant in the great team. It has to be the accountants, right? Because we do properties and especially GRA, we are property accountants. We walk the, we talk the walk, right? really important. We are investors ourselves as well. You know, we are out there buying properties every day. We're doing that. We don't compete with our clients. If a client tells us they're on a property or we see a client on a property, we move backwards. A friend of mine recently wanted to buy a property I wanted to buy. He told me, and I said, "No, mate, you can have it. I don't care if I miss a deal out because my friend or a client gets it. It doesn't bother me, right? I just go for the next deal that's coming up." Um, so a solid, the most experienced investors, they have a solid team, very solid team. I consider myself to be a slightly experienced investor, but I hang around with a bunch of solid team. Like I've got Maggie, I've got Ted. Ted's laughing. Um, every time I come to a site, Ted starts shaking his head. Because I like to overcapitalize.
Yeah,
And
you're coming. I want that done, doesn't it? I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, who's paying for it? I'm like, I don't know. Work it out. So very important. We have the right team. So your property accountants are very important. Your specialist tax advisors for structuring and asset protection, very important. Get a good lawyer in place. A good lawyer with good skills, they'll help you, right? Really, really important that you do that. Reliable and practical tradies and suppliers, very important. Sorry, I missed a point there as well. Property managers. Property managers are important. If they don't go and keep an eye on your house and don't treat it as their house, you are in trouble. So, good property manager is very important who keeps an eye on your house, puts the rent up on time. If there's a good tenant, they don't scare them and they hold on to good tenants. So, very important you get a good property manager. Tradies, very important. At GRA, if you become a GRA client, we can give you access to some of our tradies and our suppliers. We have really good tradies working for us. Um, Proven property advisors, we track record. People who talk properties but don't invest in properties, be careful taking advice from that. Literally everyone in GRA invests in properties and they all do well. 95% of my client base are business owners who invest their profit into properties or mom and dad investors who invest in properties. And basically 95% are multimillionaires, right? When something goes wrong in the market, they're sitting comfortably. They don't care because they have the right facilities in place. They have the right things in place. Monitor your progress, guys. Really important. I do a statement of position literally once a week. I do it. And then I do a cash flow position as well. I don't know if I told you, Then, or Maggie, I've ever showed you that or not. So I have two slides running. Two spreadsheets running. One is to show my statement of position gets updated weekly, and one I have is to monitor my cash flow. What is my overall cash flow position? Right? I'm so fascinated with that I kind of do it every second day. Then it makes me happy, and I'll go and have my cup of tea. You know, update your statement of position regularly. Really important, to monitor what's happening. So that's what we're saying. Update it all the time. Keep an eye on it. It encourages you to do things, Keep it simple. You don't need to create a complicated statement of position. Keep it simple. Assets, liabilities, equity, cash flow. How much money do you have access to? Cash. What's your overdraft facilities you can access? What's your credit card? That's your total cash flow position. Really simple. And if you don't know how to do this, book a session with us and we'll give you a hand. Um, and also a great way to keep an eye on your wealth growth, so you're growing or going backwards. And it's okay sometimes you go backwards. It's not a bad thing because sometimes you go backwards to actually grow faster, right? Um, we also have a tool here called Wealth Suite, which you can use to monitor your progress, your statement of position, your cash flow, all of that. So most clients use that now. That's something that we will talk about later in presentation. And you want to see equity and positive cash flow growth over time. That's important. Now, positive equity growth and positive cash flow growth. You want to chase them both, right? They both are going to grow together. And again, it's just buying the right properties. So likely a backward step each time you buy. What we mean by saying that is you buy a property, you might go and spend 100 grand, you're going backwards on your cash flow or even your equity. Once the property is finished, refinance and redo the numbers and move it forward. Now, what you got to remember is once you do up a property, let's say you bought a property for 500 grand, you spend 100 grand doing it up, it values at $1 million. So you made yourself 400 grand. Now, you might say, I'll never be able to sell this property for $1 million. Who cares? As long as you have a good valuation place, you can refinance and use the equity to do another property deal. right? That's what successful property investors do. They chase that equity and they refinance and use that to buy more properties. Even if the property came back at 700 grand instead of million, it won't bother them. But they want the highest value for refinancing equity purposes. So manage your risk, and avoid setbacks, very important, You got to make sure you manage your risk properly. And one of the things that we see people make mistake, and we've been presenting for so long, please get your insurance checked. If you bought a property 10, 15 years ago and you go, oh, look at my house, I paid 500 grand for it, great, 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 or $1 million for it, great. What is the replacement cost of that house? It could be $2 million. So if you insure it for six, 700 grand, I can tell you this now, right? If you insure it for six, 700 grand, you'd be getting a check from the banks if something went wrong and touch it, nothing goes wrong, and they say, see you later. Please check your insurance, check your replacement value. Remember, you've got retaining walls, you've got driveways, you've got underground services. They all cost money. Nothing is free. So important, check your insurance. Now, you also got to have clear long-term goals. That's our point number 9. What do you want out of life? If you ask me, I don't know. I have everything I want. I have good friends. I have good families. I don't know about friends. Maybe some family members I didn't want, but don't have choice. So I have them, and so I'm just saying I'm happy in my life. I can afford everything I want. So I actually don't have a plan going forward. But last year I decided I've had enough. This year I've come out saying no, I'm going to build more houses and I'm going to enjoy the moment. I'm going to do it for fun with my mates, and it's actually worked out well. Then enjoys it. Maggie enjoys it. Maggie gets stressed now and then when we email her 500 times. But Then takes the brunt of it. But he enjoys you enjoy the front line, don't you, Then? Building
Yeah.
houses and dealing with, um, or sometimes we call it Muppets because they do things that are not right or just completely silly. Um,
Yeah, I enjoy the interaction, the people aspects of it, and being and getting the real work done.
yeah. So if you ever seen Then, walking around in the neighborhood, get ready to stone him because he's building townhouses. He's building a lot of houses there. Property investing is a long-term game, guys. It can be hard work. So what you got to understand is, and I've said this a few times today, it's a 7 to 10 year game. If you buy properties, pay off your debt, it's a 7 to 10 year game. That's when you get your good returns in a good portfolio. Remember, multi-income or properties with big land can do well. One of the simplest equation that I tell everyone now, and this is something we've repeated over the last 30 years. As a property investor, you buy 10 houses, right? 10 cash flow positive houses. Pay off your debt. You can afford to pay principal and interest repayments. We call it P&I. You pay it at the end of the 10-year life, sell 5, pay off the rest in your mortgage. So you might end up with 6 houses debt free, and that formula works to date. It works. It's such a simple formula. Try and get 10 houses, 11th one, which is your family home, hold on to everything, right? 10 or 11 years later, you sell half, pay off your debt, and you're sorted. I've achieved that. Maggie's achieved that. Ben has achieved that, and it works, you know. And there are likely to be difficult periods when you own properties. You have legislation change, right? Labor might come in and go non-deductibility interest, and they've already made it clear they're not going to go 100% non-deductible. They might make it 50%, but I think Labor is going to be careful. They start talking about capital gains tax. As a result, they don't get voted in because Kiwis don't like capital gains tax. Kiwis know that a lot of their taxpayer money has been wasted. So the more money we give to the government, the more it gets wasted. So that's why Kiwis don't like capital gains tax. Um, Also, there's market downturns. Now, from my experience being in properties, and Megan Thin, I don't know about your experience, I only see market downturns for 2 years, the worst of the worst. And then for the next 8 years, we see great 8 years. And for somehow that's the formula. And I can tell you this now, houses are not going to get any cheaper. And I'm happy to sign the paperwork in 10 years' time. Prove that houses are not going to get any cheaper. The reason I can sit here and tell you that is because we build houses. And it's not getting any cheaper. Land is getting more expensive. We're paying more for land now in Auckland than what we were paying in 2021 at the top of the cycle. and we're competing against 20 or 30 investors or developers at a time. Also, you might have a couple of years of really high OCR, which is what we've just come out of. And your personal circumstances, could impact as well. And if it does, for some reason, your personal circumstances have changed, you own properties, just sell them. What's the worst? You lose 30, 40 grand, on a couple of your properties. That's your risk there, but you just sell houses, come out or break even, you know. So you got to have sufficient motivation to stick it out. You can't just say, oh, 7, 10 years is a long time. It doesn't just happen overnight, right? So you got to sit in there and do it. Maggie, Dan, and I are long-term investors as well. We think long-term. We never think of short-term. So clear long-term goals as well help prevent quitting too soon. Really important because you have your own plan. You know what you're doing. You go, I've made my mind that I was going to hold for 10 years. Well, you stick it out all the way. But this, I remember, right properties. If you buy the wrong properties, we want you out of there as fast as you can. If you bought the wrong properties, right properties are your land banking, cash flow positive, or multi-dwelling income. Um, and so you kind of have to hold on to the property for long term before you see the benefits of quality investing. Now, avoiding negative. This thing's really important, avoiding negativity or negative people. I have met a lot of investors over time. I've also met a lot of people who are just super against property. And I don't blame them. If you talk to a guy like me, I don't like shares. I don't like shares. I don't understand Bitcoins. And the reason I don't like shares is I was 4 years old, 1988. So now everyone knows my age. I'm 42 years old. I was 4 years old, and my dad is a farming background, and he has a lot of mates who are farmers, and they had a lot of money in share market, and it blew. So basically, people lost their life savings. As a result, a lot of my dad's mate committed suicide, and I heard that to date, my dad has never bought even $1 of shares. He hates it. And as a result, I think I've been passed on that. So I'm quite negative when it comes to shares. Now, I don't discourage people from it. I just personally don't invest my money as much in shares, but I've seen people do well. Then I've seen people do well and they've come backwards in shares as well. But I'm not going to give you any financial advice because I don't understand shares or Bitcoins. And you've got to be careful doing Bitcoins because I've had issues or mates where they've done Bitcoins, but they were doing with a scammer. So they've lost their money overnight or over a week. Because what they do is they get you to put 10 grand and the 10 grand becomes 30 grand. You get quite excited. So you put another 100 grand in or 200 grand in because you think it's going to become 600. The scammer's gone. Taking the money, disappeared. Um, so property is still an excellent way to build your wealth long term, right? We're just going through a cycle. And I'll tell you in 5 years' time, everyone will be like, oh, you're so lucky being in properties. It doesn't work like that. You've got to be there riding the cycle. Um, don't let the opinions of others keep you from achieving your goals. The biggest one is the newspaper. They've got the wrong news every time. They're saying properties are not selling, da da da. We're in auction rooms. The auction rooms are packed. People are fighting to buy houses. Yes, the townhouses are slow to move, but they eventually sell as well. Um, and be selective on who you take advice from. You want to take advice from accountants who do properties. Take on advice from accountants who do property and business investing, and they've helped their clients grow their asset base. And never expect everything will go smoothly, right? Because you do have things changing on you. You didn't see it coming. A gate might blow and suddenly it's taken your windows out, or someone's driven into your house. Things like that happen. And you can have bad tenants or leaking roofs, or unpaid rent. It's just all part of the game. You fix it, you get good tenants in, and you move on. That's what we do. Now, because now you've listened to us and you're probably confused and go, what are these guys talking about? What we're going to do is we're going to tell you how to start. What do you have to do? Now, Maggie's going to give you a bit of rundown. Maggie, then do you want to have control of the slides or do you want me to do this? Oh, you got it? Okay, go for it, Maggie.
The important thing is not just to rush out and buy a house because it's too easy to end up with one that isn't going to help you achieve your goals, right? One of those ones to avoid, or at least one that is, really so-so, and you could have done much better. So I think start by figuring out where you are at the moment and what it is you want. So Celestia's talked quite a lot about goals and having long-term plans and targets that are motivating enough to keep you in this for a long time. As we're talking, at least a decade. And the wonderful thing that GRA's done that is develop a tool for that called Wealth Suite. And if you sign up for Property School, which we'll talk about next, you get to try Wealth Suite out for a whole year. So once you know where you are, where you want to be, you've got some ideas about that in mind and on paper in Wealth Suite, you need, before you go out to buy, you need to get the right knowledge. And that's where we share everything we know about property in GRA's Property School. And then if you're interested in developing, we have a specialist development course as well. Then you work out a strategy, because of course from there, you might take a different path. So if you knew you wanted to develop property and keep all the resulting houses as rental properties, I mean, that's a very different strategy to buying a rundown house and doing it up and selling it. So once you know what you want to do, you'll get your structure set up. So that's your trusts and your companies. And GRA have a specialised asset and tax planning team that help you do that in the most optimal fashion. Then you arrange your finance if you need finance, because that depends on the structures that you'll be using. And we can introduce you to a great broker, Chris Peterson Mortgages, and he gives a presentation in Property School that talks all about different financing options and the best way to do things. Once you've got your money sorted, then you buy the property. And that's where Than and I can step in and help you actually choose a good property and help you do the due diligence and then any work that it needs doing after that.
So guys, point number 5 is very important. You've got to have your structures before you get your funding put in place. Because I'll tell you this now, if you go and get funding in your name and then we're putting structures up, you're redoing the whole thing again. And it's expensive, it's time consuming. All right. So very important, get your structures in place and then get your funding. And then you use people like Maggie and Thin because they know what they're doing. Right. If you ring me about resource consent or power line, I have zero knowledge. I'll send you to Maggie or Thin, no? And Maggie and Thin are smart people. They spend all their day studying property files and they learn from their mistakes and clients' mistake. And the clients tell them what mistakes they made. They've read the file, they understand it. It's really important, guys. Now, guys, we have our property school. So this is something that we promote and we want clients to join property school because this is quite knowledgeable. We have a special today. So if you sign up today, it's $4.95. Basically, you scan the QR code and you fill out the forms and do all that. That would get you through. That's the QR code for property school, isn't it, Maggie?
Yes.
Yeah, and then discount will be applied. But if you do pay full price for it, don't worry, we'll send you $100 back. We won't keep it. I'll be scared if Thin had that $100. We've recently re-recorded the property school, so it's quite latest. It's the latest property school that we want you to look at, and you also get 12 months access to it. Now I can tell you this: we're giving you this for $4.95. We've probably spent a couple of $100,000 setting this up, Maggie, quite easily, you know.
But
And
there's an immense amount of knowledge and time and effort that's gone into this.
yeah, over 100 years of property experience, knowledge in there. And you also get 12-month access to Wealth Suite. This is basically a software where you get to do your statement of position, you look at your growth and things like that, and people love it. They love having it. Now you could go for and apply for banking. You can just go into Wealth Suite. It will let you download all your statement of position. You can print it out, stick it into your application, send it to the banks. If you are non-GRA client, you can get a free initial meeting with us as well. This is only to non-GRA clients. If you are GRA clients, you'd like to book us as well, contact Amy. She'll organize a meeting. But non-GRA clients get 1 hour free meeting. And that's, I suggest you make use of that. But there you go. That's a property school QR code. So scan that and sort that out. Now, guys, I'm going to give you a recommendation. We're coming to the end of the presentation. I want all the questions, guys. There's 23, 24 people listening to us. I want lots of questions because you're getting free resources here. Ask me questions. Don't email me 500 questions. You got a chance now. Ask me questions now. Um, so recommendations. This is my recommendation. I've been giving the same recommendations for the last 10 years. Don't do nothing. You act sooner, not later. How many of you are sitting here going, I wish I did this 10 years ago, I bought 10 or 20 properties? Every one of us, right? So very important you act sooner. Buy the right properties. Just buy the right properties. Don't get emotions in the way. Just buy the right properties. I mean, if you've got amazing cash flow, you can afford a negative property. Well, your right property would be a high-end capital growing asset, right? But if you are mum and dad, bit tight, well, you start with properties that are just cash flow positive in your normal rental market. I'll buy anything. I'll buy in those areas as well. Don't use lack of time or fear as an excuse, right? Because if you say you got a lack of time, and I corner my accountants all the time and say, give me a phone, and I look at their phone, their screen time is 5 hours per day. I said, what do you watch for 5 hours? My screen time is 4 hours, but I'm always talking on the phone. Well, that's what I believe you know. But that's what it is. Draw yourself a timeline with targets. When I was 26, I drew myself a timeline that 36, I wanted to be retired, and I wanted to have 10 houses. Right? I'm 42, and we have over 60 in the portfolio, and we're building more and more. Surround yourself with the right people. Really important, guys. Always surround yourself with the right people because they will talk the same lingo. They'll help you grow, things like that. That's why property-minded people are always hanging out together. Think long terms when it comes to property investing. You can't invest now, expect to retire at the end of the year. It's always a 7 to 10 year plan. So you got to think long term when it comes to property investing. Now, here's a GRA client that was sending me a text message, and I handed my phone over to Maggie, and she was reading the messages, and she goes, "This is pretty cool." Then she said we should put this in our presentation. So this is a message about 4 or 5 years old. I've been, the client goes, I've been updating my World Sweat, so he uses World Sweat to record his assets. I'm sitting around $7 million just in property, being big gains in the last 12 months, probably the last 6 months. I go, yep, you should be over $10 million in net worth. That's what I'm telling him because he's got a business as well. And he goes, and I go, you have done well, mate. Wow, yeah, maybe $10 million, but doesn't feel like it. But thanks. And you helped me a lot. So I appreciate that too, bro. Now, what he means is why he's saying you helped me a lot. When I first met him, he was negative 1.5 million. So he's come out of that negative 1.5 million in 10, over the 10 years. He grew his wealth to 10 million. Now, I can tell you this message is 4 or 5 years old. This guy's worth over 18 million at the moment. He's growing aggressively. And if you look at my last text message, this is my golden rule, and nothing ever changes from this. I think it's just sticking to the game plan. Buy properties, pay off debt. Always pay off debt, guys. Very important. Buy good assets, land bank, and cash flow positive, etc. What have we been talking about for the last hour or so? Good assets, cash flow positive, and that's it. This is the golden ingredient. It never changes, and this is it. Do you agree, Megan, then?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
absolutely. It's
Yeah,
basic and simple, and it's about um, getting those really good properties.
yeah. And the way you can make this work is if you surround yourself with the right people. The reason this particular client bailed himself out of trouble was because he surrounded himself with good people who told him what he needed to get rid of and what he needed to do. And we worked on his cash flow like anything to improve it. Then can we go to the next message? Next slide. Guys, this is an insurance slide that I bring it up all the time as well. Please, if you haven't looked at insurance on your property again, you haven't insured your property, it's insured based on 10-year values, go to a company like Initial. So if you say you're from GRA, you'll get a massive discount. When I say massive, like probably 10% or something, I think. Which is still quite a bit. And they are cheap. Initial is cheap. I enjoy dealing with them. Very important. Now, something about insurance companies, guys, if you have rental properties, you get insurance, please send them a copy of your tenancy agreement. Really important. So if you get a tenant, they can review it, and if they have any questions, you might as well resolve it then. What you don't want to do is insure the property, touch it, nothing happens. But if something happens, they go, oh, we didn't allow that tenant to live in the house. Why did you do that? So when you send them a copy of the tenancy agreement, they know what they're dealing with. So really important, you get your insurance, in place for your rental properties, send them a copy of your tenancy agreement. Remember, also personal insurance, super important, guys. Get your health insurance in place, get your life insurance in place, and these things are really important because I can tell you this now, healthcare is right at the bottom in NZ at the moment. The only people who get good healthcare are the ones with good insurance companies in place backing them up. Um, recently, then you rang me, you couldn't get into an appointment through the government, right?
Yep.
And I said to you, if you've got insurance in place, I can get you connected straight away. And he said, yep, go to through the insurance and you got your booking straight away, right then?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny also because there was a friend of mine who wanted to get someone in there and he was like, I'll pay extra as a private to go see it, that a specialist. The specialist was so booked out, even they weren't able to take someone who's wanted to pay privately out of their own pocket. They're like, no, no, we're too busy. We've got priorities to look after people that, coming through Southern Cross and this, it was
Yep.
another 3 months wait.
Absolutely. Because it's not about you paying extra, right? They've got so much job coming out of the insurance companies. They're not interested in your money. So again, very important, guys, get your insurances in place. Really, and you can call Steve Munro. He's part of Risk Direct. He can review your insurance for free. He's not going to sell you a product if you don't need. He will not cancel your insurance if you don't need to cancel. Right? He'll just give you an opinion, and if you like it, go with it. And if he says there's nothing needs to be done, you're happy, just keep what you have in place. But it's free service, so I suggest you contact him, get him to look at your insurance. Really important, guys. Now, if you are non-GRA clients, right? If you haven't been a GRA client and you'd like to obviously get in touch with us and meet us, please scan the QR code there, fill out the form, and Amy will get in touch with you. But there's no harm in coming to see us. You get 1 hour free meeting. We talk about asset protection. We talk about tax planning advice and any other accounting services you need. If you do have any questions about our presentation, feel free to get hold of Amy. Now, before we hang up, guys, we're just about to finish for the night. Please get your questions in because we're going to start answering them now. I want those questions because it makes it exciting for us as well. Maggie, do you have the questions there?
Right, Callum says, hi, thanks for running this seminar. Really appreciate it. I have one question I'd love to get your take on. What would be the best way to enter the market for first home buyers looking to invest straight out of university?
Well, if I was straight out of university, the first thing I'll be trying to do is get a good cash flow job. Some sort of cash flow because once you have cash flow, once you have good income, you can actually do well with your investing. If you don't have cash flow, the government's not going to give you a deposit that, they stopped doing that. Under Labor, you could, but under the current government, you're not going to get it. So the only way, Callum, for you to grow would be to, get your cash flow going. Now, as a graduate, I'm telling you, you should probably look at some business opportunities as well. There might be something out there that works for you, big tech, but you might be a qualified engineer or someone on good salary where you can, buy houses. But Callum, if you fill out the form, send it to us, we might be able to refer you to one of the mortgage brokers and they'll give you a hand.
One thing I like for young people is that because you're still single, used to perhaps sharing, being in halls, whatever, is as long as the location's good, getting a house that you could get flatmates into before you
Mm.
have a partner or kids or anything like any of those sort of responsibilities. Fill the house up with flatmates and have them pay your mortgage down.
And just coming back to that, Maggie, what Maggie's saying is multi-income properties as well. If you can score
Mm.
yourself, something with 5 bedrooms, suddenly you got $200 a week water income coming in, out of each rooms, and yeah, so grow yourself. Remember, you don't have to do this all your life, Callum. It's just when you're starting, things get tight, and then you come out on the other end. But as a young lad, suggest getting into properties. Very good. I like it. You know. What's next, Maggie?
Mag says, I'm nearly 60. Is that too late to start?
Oh, young, young. It's never too late to start. But if I'm 60 years old, I want cash flow positive, and I want multi-income. That's what I'll be chasing. Because when you start buying multi-income properties, they do go up in value, and you can come out of them anytime. You know. So I would suggest that for you. It all depends also, Mags, what have you got, your statement of position and things like that. And what are you doing? What are you earning? So got to look at the whole picture, but never too late.
Because time's limited, you haven't got decades, which is the typical time span you want to have available. Um, is to be really clear on what you want, and
Mm,
then I think that would inform the type of property that you would go for.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Andreas says, "How do I start this journey as a self-employed person?"
Um, Andres, that's um, quite an easy start. It all depends on your cash flow. So if you've got a good business, um, and there's good cash flow, you should be easily bankable. So the first, where do you start? If you look at the journey map that Maggie was running, you basically decide what do you want to do. Come and see us. We'll organize all your mortgages and structures in place and get you going. So I suggest you book into one of those meetings and come and see us.
But also one that would be great to meet with Chris Peterson.
Yes.
He can go through all the lending options that are available for a self-employed person, and if there's anything that Andreas would need to do to get himself in a position where he's able to borrow or borrow well.
Yeah. You got the next one there, Maggie, coming through.
Samantha asks, "What do you think about cross lease properties?"
I personally am not a big fan of cross lease properties, and the reason, especially when they're shared driveway, it can be hard to deal with the tenant, with the other party, or if there's more people sharing the driveway. But look, if it's at the right price, it's cash flow positive, it's not much difference to a freehold property. But get the lease, the cross lease checked. Really important because you don't want to buy a cross lease property that hasn't got much lifetime left on it, or it's got major covenants on it. So, if you've got 900 years, I'm sure you won't be worried what's going to happen in 900 years, you know. Um,
Really important to have the titles checked carefully to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the cross lease titles. Because if there is, that can be all sorts of nightmares to resolve and costly,
yeah.
isn't it? But
Well,
I've
they
had
can have the right to park in front of your house.
mm,
Then you've got a trouble, you've got an issue there. So very important, like Maggie said, get the title checked.
mm. But I've had cross lease properties, and it's not been a problem. It essentially hasn't been any different than a fee simple would have. But of course, a fee simple title's better.
Mm.
Do you have anything to add, Fan? You've got a bit of experience with cross lease as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are opportunities. Like Celeste said earlier, if you bought it at the right price, and if you have a nice neighbor, you could work together and get the title converted into a fee simple. By doing that, and if they're willing to share the cost, you are going to get an uplift in the value of your property. But there are elements that are not outside your control because of the title, because your neighbor could say, no, I don't want to do it. You pay for it, or simply says no, then you're just stuck with a crossless title forever.
Yeah.
Caleb says, "Thanks, Salish and team. Great session. When comparing the property development strategy with B, buy to renovate sell strategy, sorry, buy, renovate, sell strategy, which do you generally prefer and recommend?"
Um, I, if I was doing it on my own, I'd prefer buy, renovate, and sell. Much easier, way easier. And you've done it, you're out of it, you've made your money. If I'm doing, the reason I'm doing property development now is because I've got three other mates, including me, four, and we got them managing all the projects. It makes it easier on us. But if I was to do property development alone, I'll tell you this, I'll probably go mental. Because it is
That's
hard
not
work.
that's not where you started either.
That's not where I started. I started buying
Mm.
properties in normal, middle class suburb streets, right? That's where I started. And this was just good homes, working class people lived in there, paid their rent, kids went to the local school, and that's where I started. I stay away from rough areas, right? That's one place one thing I can't do. I cannot buy houses in rough areas. So I always buy where the working class are, because they are normally your tenants, and that's why I'm changing. I don't buy in really high end areas because people own houses there. No one can afford to rent. So so Caleb, my easiest answer is anyone getting into properties is buy, renovate, and sell. That's where you land, but property development would be your second choice, and you better do it with a couple of mates with cash flow or with good working capital behind you. Because you can run out of money really fast with development sites. Hmm.
There's so many options with development as well. So we could be talking something really simple, like a house with a backyard, and you put a second, or relatively simple, put a second-hand relocatable house on it and do it up.
Hmm.
Much lower risk than some of the examples that you were showing before, Salesh, where you're clearing a site and building multiple new dwellings on there. I mean, that's, as we
Hmm.
saw, millions of dollars and higher risk. Um,
Yes.
but then
Yeah.
again, you could be
Yeah.
keeping those as rentals, or you could be needing to sell them at a
Yeah.
good price.
I mean, the issue with buying one house and putting a second house at the back, the land is just so expensive.
Yeah.
You're competing against developers all the time, so you can't really build a second house. You got to build more to make your numbers work. Mm. That's the next one we got coming through.
And can you buy multi units in Auckland?
Oh, definitely. There's plenty of multi-unit sites in Auckland. They're everywhere. Then just found one the other day, right, then?
Yep. Looked at the home and income and uh, yeah, we're doing through our due diligence. But there are quite a few on the market. You just best thing to do is go online. Otherwise, call up an agent, tell them what you're looking for, let them do the running for you.
Yeah. And when you do call up an agent, you tell them you've got pre-approval in place and make sure you have a pre-approval to show them the letter, and you'll get a lot of interest from the agent to look after you, or you've got cash in the bank. Whatever you do, make friends with the agent. Don't get too smart with an agent because they'll never return your call back. So for the agent to work in your favor, make friends with them. Take them out for coffee and pay for the coffee, all of that. And they'll work really hard. There you go. Guys, you got more questions coming through. We're gonna go shortly, but we got one more coming through now.
Yeah, so Callum's just our graduate has just added a bit more context. There's a group of three of them with 100K plus salary jobs looking to invest together. Where should our priorities be first?
Fantastic. Now that's even better. Now, Callum, I like what you're telling me. And I'm gonna really back up young people because the way to your retirement over the next 10 years is properties, and I can tell you this right now. If I were you, Callum, I'd be buying out of Auckland. And the reason is it's easier to get into markets like Rotorua, Whangarei, and to give you an example, I buy a property there, like Leo Road. I paid 310 grand. I spent 150 renovating, 460. The value comes back at 700, and I'm getting $45,000 a year rent. Now, the same property, if I buy in Papatoe, is about 1.5, 1.6 million then, 1,000 square meters, two dwellings,
Yeah.
and the rent is the same. The rent doesn't change. The rent is similar to Rotorua. Maybe I get extra $50 a week in Auckland, but shit, my capital requirement in Auckland is three times more. So if I was you, Callum, I'd be going out and looking at all the towns where there's shortage of housing. There's going to be shortage of housing for the next 25 to 30 years out of Auckland. So I'm talking about Rotorua, Whangarei. Whangarei needs 21,000 houses as of today, right? Another problem you got is Wellington. All the houses are very old. They're going to start demolishing them and building new houses, right? Um, yes, Auckland is flooded with townhouses, but that's going to be resolved. As soon as we had 30,000 people move in, suddenly you'll never be able to find a rental property. Anyone trying to buy a rental property in central Auckland, good luck at the moment. Impossible, impossible to find a rental property in Auckland, right? So in central Auckland, I mean, a nice property, you can put two cars on the same driveway and all of that. Impossible. So Callum, as a young lad coming through and with your mates, I suggest you go out of Auckland, chase cash flow positive, chase big land, because you'll be able to do multi-dwellings. The same Auckland rules will go down to smaller towns, and it's happening. So I tell you to go to places like Rotorua, go to Whangarei. Those are the two towns that I'll probably get you to look at. Wanganui, I know Wanganui's got a major shortage of houses as well. Good rent, really good rent. I've got a property in Wanganui that I was trying to invest with Matt. He said he wasn't interested. I bought one of the most expensive houses there about 7 years ago, 800 grand. Everyone in the street rang me and said, "You idiot. The houses are only 400 grand here." And I said, "No, I've got a trick here. I bought a mansion and I rented it to a social housing provider and they spent 200 grand renovating the mansion. And I think it's rented at $2,200 a week, and it's paid itself off. It's doing really well. And I think I've just renewed the contract for another 10 years. So there's just housing demand everywhere. I was in Invercargill last week. I could not believe when they told me one bedroom rents for $480 a week in Invercargill, a one bedroom house. And they've got a massive line of people waiting to get in. There's just shortage of houses out of Auckland everywhere. So I would say as a young people coming in, if your capital is tight, go to smaller towns. And because no one's building there, the current stock are coming up in value, the rents are coming up in value. For me to build a three-bedroom house in Rotorua is 30% more expensive than Auckland. I can't find tradies in Rotorua. I have to send all my tradies from Auckland to Rotorua to work on my properties there. And that's the same problem. I was talking to someone who was building in Kawakawa up north, if you guys know where that is. I thought Tokarua was bad. Kawakawa takes it to the next level. And they built a four-bedroom brick and tile house. Cost them 997 grand just for the build in Kawakawa. And I was like, mate, what were you thinking? And he goes, now I've built it, I'm thinking the same. you know. So it just shows the cost of building houses through the roof. So small towns, I'll be chasing big land, cash flow positive. And the two towns that really sits in my head is Rotorua and Whangarei. These towns are taking off, and Hamilton is already up there. Hamilton used to be always behind Auckland. Hamilton's selling for the same price as Auckland now. So that's what's happening. But I like it, Callum. Young people getting into properties, this is your future. Do it properly, mate. In 10 years' time, you'll be coming and buying Than and Maggie and I a nice bottle of whiskey and saying thank you. You just stick to the game plan. Don't come out of it. Buy, pay off debt, refinance, pull your equity out, go to the next one and the next one and next one. And what you should do is try and hook up with us so we can give you a good mortgage broker, Chris Patterson, to work with you. He'll look after you for life and you're sorted. Chris Patterson was the one who helped me get into my properties. I bought properties, not even have funding, and I used to buy him kebabs at 10 o'clock at night and feed him and go, mate, give me funding. I'm stressed. You know, one of the properties I bought for 460 grand. I couldn't get funding. I bought him a kebab and I talked to him and he said, "Oh, I'll make it happen." 3 days later, he gets me funding. So I used the equity in their property. Their property's worth 1.4 now. I've used the equity on that property to make about $5 million. And I remind him all the time. And I'm like, mate, that property there you funded me has made me $5 million, you know? Um,
He must feel ripped off. Come on.
well, for bankers, some reason, bankers see what their clients are doing. And I have all the bankers I catch up with, they tell me the same thing. We know what our clients are doing. We see the numbers and we're just too scared to do it. And I'm like, but you approved the loan. And they're like, yeah, but we're just too scared. All the bankers have the same problem.
Their money, isn't it? I suppose different if it's your own money.
Yeah. And the problem with accountants, they're risk adverse, right? You tell an accountant that you got to buy a rental property, his hand starts shaking, you know? So at very young age, I worked out either I was an accountant or property investor, and I realized I like risk. I like chasing risk. And so I swapped around and started doing more properties. But most accountants you talk to will just be scared to get into properties. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, guys. And if you've got any more questions coming before we hang up and let you go to bed and let you have dinner and all of that. But if you do want a meeting, please fill that form out. We'll get you into seeing one of our consultants. There we go. Is there capital growth outside of Auckland? Oh, I don't know. There was a capital growth in Auckland. That's no, I'm sorry. It's an internal joke for us because everyone's saying Auckland's stabilizing, but capital growth outside in Auckland currently is insane. I can't believe how good it is. And the reason I'm telling you that is because cost of building is so high, so the existing stock is coming up in value. Just while we talk about capital growth, one of my clients took me to a property in Invercargill last week, and he said to me, the front of the property was a fire station, and said to me, "What do you think this property is worth?" And I'm looking at it going, "I don't want to offend anyone here," and I say 700 grand, right? And to me, it actually felt like 700 grand, even that felt like overpriced. It sold for 1.3 million, and that's telling you what's happening because the cost of building is so high. It costs more money to build properties out of Auckland. So what's happening? Your existing stock is coming up in value. Rotorua is like the Queenstown of North Island. Every weekend, Aucklanders go to Rotorua for holiday. Wellingtonians go to Rotorua for holiday. Every weekend, it's flooded with people. It's busy, you know. So Whangarei on the other side, they just don't have enough houses. 21,000 shortage of housing, and the rent is through the roof. They rent well. Anyway, guys, that's my little story. So, any other questions before we hang up? Are we good to go? No worries. Guys, everyone have a good night. Thank you, Then. Thank you, Mingy.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you for
night.
Good
listening to
night.
us. See you. Bye.